Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10. We're James Alexander Estate Agents, and we broadcast every day about all things property because we love it. We love talking about it, we love selling it, we love renting it. We just love the business. That's why we do what we do. How are you? I hope you're well. We're in an area called Norbury, which has Streatham to the north, Croydon to the south, and we sell and let properties every day. We're kind of at the coal face, so we like to let you know what's going on right here on the front line of property and what's going on in the wider market in terms of property news, etc. So the news today, the weather is beautiful. It's an absolute corker of a day, the perfect day for photographs. We've got a couple of new instructions coming up. We've got our pro going out, taking shots on those, which is always fantastic. And look at the numbers, they're all up everywhere. In terms of the property stats, we've looked around, and Rightmove stats were out yesterday. And what they're saying is that every single London borough is up. At last, London is back. And I'll tell you, the lowest London borough and the highest London borough, it might be obvious to you, Kensington and Chelsea is the highest. They've really hit the highest. But, you know, they've struggled over recent years. And it's nice to see. I know the super rich don't necessarily have such a big impact on the wider market, but they're way ahead in terms of London prices. And the lowest, I think they're up with 13.8% in Kensington and Chelsea. And the lowest rate of growth is actually Lambeth, where it's 1.7, so 0.7%. But the problem with these stats is this, that they take these stats at a given point in time. And if it happens to be that, for instance, in Lambeth, they were looking at flats, and flats were particularly slow, especially one-bedroom flats, for instance, then that might skew the market, where the three-bedroom houses have had much more meteoric rises. So, you know what they say, lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can cut these things any way you want. But that's what the stats are saying, according to Rightmove at the moment. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things that are happening regularly now. On valuation, just after valuation, the solicitors' inquiries come through to the vendors or sellers' solicitors. And when they come through, more often than not now, they're asking for two things. They're asking for a gas safety certificate and an electrical installation condition report. Now, these names will be maybe familiar to you if you're a landlord, but maybe not if you're a regular seller of property. So just to get some context on it, if you've been renting a property out, then there should have been a gas safety certificate, and it's right and proper that the solicitor would ask for the last one so that you could see what it was. Sorry, just to prove we're live there, the old doorbell's going. So, yeah, what they'll do is they'll ask you for the gas safety certificate and a thing called an EICR, or Electrical Installation Condition Report. The gas version of it's called a CP12, by the way. And what's happening now is that many residential sellers are being asked for these things, and they're like, what are these things? Why am I, what's going on here? You do not have to provide a gas safety certificate. It's not incumbent upon you to do so, or an electrical installation condition report if you're a seller. If the buyers want those things, they can pay for them themselves. You do not have to do it. If you are a landlord, then certainly you should provide them because you already have them. So to volunteer to something you already have that's going to cost you nothing, well, why wouldn't you? But I think sellers particularly are feeling as though it's upon them to have these reports done at great expense, and it's not. I say great expense. To give you some sort of context, you should be looking at around £70 to £100 for a gas safety certificate and around £120 to £200 for an electrical installation report. Nonetheless, it's not your responsibility to carry out these reports on behalf of the buyer. You know, buyer beware does carry some weight. There is some balance to that now with the Consumer Credit Act rules now and regulations, but nonetheless, it's not your job to provide every piece of safety information to a buyer. They need to carry out their own checks and balances to make sure that they're comfortable with the purchase. Now, coming on from that, the other thing that's happening a lot is down valuation. This is something, if you're struggling with this, then we do sympathise with you. Some surveyors are reasonable about this, some are unreasonable. We have one particular surveyor that whenever we sell a property, we see the name, we're like, oh, not him. Literally, we know he's going to downvalue everything. But the worst about it is that most surveyors are quite reasonable people. And when you give them comparable evidence on the same street of prices that have sold, properties that have sold for a similar price, then they'll back down and say, okay, I can see your evidence. Fair enough. I can see you've sold properties. So from an agent perspective, what we like to do is prepare those comparables so that when the surveyor comes to pick up the keys, we can say, oh, by the way, there's the last 3 we sold on the road. The difficulty is with a fast rising market, there can be a substantial difference between one you've sold even a couple of months ago and today. And therefore, surveyors can downvalue and do downvalue, especially where the mortgage application is at higher rate. This is where the difference between someone with a 90% mortgage and therefore a high risk to a lender and someone with a 50% mortgage and therefore a lower risk to the lender, you're more likely to find a down valuation when someone's a 90% borrower. And that's because the risk to the lender is that they get the property back. And if the market were to fall or change, then obviously with only 10% buffer between the actual price and them, there's a greater risk than if there's a 50% loan and therefore the market would have to effectively fall 50%, which is never going to happen realistically. Therefore, their money is locked in and safe regardless. So down valuations, what can you do about them? Well, number one, make sure that your agent has prepared comparable evidence for the surveyor. Number two, make sure that the comparable evidence that you have is around if you're selling directly, because I know a lot of you now will be using the online services. Good luck with that. But if you are, you can use tools such as Net House Prices and Rightmove to look for sold prices in your street, look for houses that have sold. The problem is this, that a lot of these prices, not only will they lag the market, if you're not with a sort of front-facing agent that's selling by the day, a lot of the time the comparables they'll be using will be from Land Registry. And these Land Registry stats, they lag the market, because if you can imagine, you sell a property today, then that information goes to Land Registry. It can be 3 or 4 months before it's uploaded. And when it is, it's 3 or 4 months old, of course. So therefore, it's not exactly relevant to today's market. So you do need to show a range of things that are not just sold and completed, but things that are maybe under offer that are not yet sold in order to assist your argument, because it can be a real problem. Something else I noticed in the papers today, the tall buildings, central London's been the one for the skyscrapers, but now the outer London areas have more new applications for skyscrapers than the inner London areas. And so we can expect to see more of these things jumping up everywhere. Well, if you're near to Croydon like we are, we see it all the time. But there's a massive rise in applications for that. So we're going to see more skyscrapers across all London boroughs, and not necessarily to the complement of the area, but we'll see what happens there. And the other thing that's happening is there's a rise in applications to change flats, change shops into flats. And that is because obviously the high street being decimated, when shops are vacant for a certain period of time, you can apply to change that shop into residential use, particularly on a secondary parade, not so much on main high streets, because of course the dilemma the local authority have, and the reason they want to keep those shops is shops bring employment. And of course, housing brings housing, but it's not the same thing. They want people to be employed, and chances are that a shop will bring employment to more than one person. And, that is the reason why they want to keep shops rather than allow you to turn them into residential. But if you can prove that you've advertised and been unable to let the shop for a period of time, then sometimes you can get the local authorities to relent and you can change the use class and turn that shop into a residential home. And that can be really beneficial because rents are really flying, as we said before. If you do have property you're considering renting, then please get in touch, especially in the local area. We do cover quite a wide area. If you're with another managing agent, you're finding that you're unhappy with the service, we do have a smooth transition service, which will cost you probably less than you're already paying the other agent, where we can help to move everything across, including the deposit, the accounts and everything else, so that your details are up to date and the compliance checks are done as the transfer is done, so we can make sure A, all the compliance is done, which often frankly it's not, and B, that the deposit is transferred so that we're looking after your interests. A lot of people say, well, you're a small company, what about if you were to go bust? Well, we're Fidelity bonded. What that means is that there's an insurance backed policy that covers our client's account, which by the way is audited annually anyway. And basically what happens is if we were, God forbid, to go bust, bearing in mind we've been here since the 90s, unlikely, but if we did, your money is 100% protected because we have that Fidelity bonding courtesy of our Arla membership. And you should be looking for that in a letting agent. Too many people look for the cheapest cost and don't look for the professionalism of the agent. And most importantly, when you're looking to rent a property, the relationship with the agent is quite different. The relationship with the agent is very much more personal because the agent is looking after your biggest asset, and that's never lost on us. We do realize this is massive for most of our landlords, and therefore we try and make sure we get the very best fit in terms of the tenant type and style. Apart from that, 5 valuations today, and we still need more, but really busy day on the valuations, which is great. 2 great instructions coming on the Green Lane area, which is fantastic. We're going to do some sneak peeks of those shortly, and then we'll have the full details for you this week on at least one of those, and the second one will probably come up in a week or 2, but excited to bring that to market for you as well. So apart from that, hope you're enjoying the sunshine. Look after yourselves, and if you can, family and friends. Thanks for watching. Ciao.